Thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Christmas Eve here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. Preparing for a groundbreaking and a historic one at that. The two Koreas will hold a groundbreaking ceremony on Wednesday, marking the start of their joint rail and road connection projects. No signs, no warnings, and it hit in the middle of the night. The number of people killed in the tsunami that swept across parts of Indonesia tops 220, with others still unaccounted for. Plus, grabbing the headlines yet again, Tottenham Hotspur South Korean striker Heung-min scores twice to help his team smash Everton 6-2. Our top story this morning, though. 10 South Korean officials are on a one-day trip to North Korea for an on-site inspection of the western Gyeongui highway as part of efforts for an ambitious inter-Korean road connection project. Officials from Seoul's Unification Ministry and the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport will be inspecting some 4 kilometers of highway in the Gaeseong area. They crossed the border this morning and are expected back at around 5 p.m. Korea time. Unlike the joint study for the Gaeseong-Pyongyang road conducted back in August, today's inspection will be done without surveying equipment. The inspection comes a couple of days ahead of a big groundbreaking ceremony for inter-Korean rail and road connections that is scheduled for Wednesday. For the first time since the ruling in late October over Japanese firms' use of forced labor from South Korea, officials from Seoul and Tokyo are going to get together to discuss the sensitive matter. Japan's Director General of the Asian and Oceanian Affairs Bureau, Kenji Kanasugi, is to visit Seoul's Foreign Ministry this afternoon, where he will meet with the Director General for Northeast Asian Affairs, Kim Yong-gil. 2 months ago, Seoul Supreme Court had ordered 2 Japanese firms to pay compensation for unpaid work during World War II. Japan has argued the issue was settled when the two countries normalized diplomatic relations in 1965, but recently said it hopes Seoul will respond in a way so that the legal foundation of the ties between the two are not harmed. Seoul said it respects judicial independence, but has not yet come up with an official response. The South Korean Navy's first Aegis-equipped destroyer, Sejong the Great, has been protecting the country's territorial waters for 10 years now, with its maritime patrol aircraft conducting regular reconnaissance missions. The South Korean Navy is ready to cope with any contingency. Kan Hyung-woo reports.
10 years ago, the South Korean Navy began operating its first Aegis-equipped destroyer, Sejong the Great. The ship has one of the world's most advanced maritime warfighting capabilities in its ballistic missile defense system. The Aegis system's Spy-1 radar provides 360-degree three-dimensional tracking with a range of almost 1,000 kilometers, enabling it to fend off attacks from land targets, submarines, warships, and aircraft, all at the same time. Sejong the Great conducts combat station training at least once a day, and it only takes about 2.5 minutes for the entire crew of 300 to get in position for battle. But it's not just ships protecting the nation's waters. The South Korean Navy also has P-3C maritime patrol aircraft, 16 of them watching from the sky.
Our Navy is constantly patrolling the buffer areas in the West and East Seas, and we're in a position to immediately respond to any provocations.
Currently, the South Korean Navy has 3 Aegis-equipped destroyers, including Sejong the Great, but it aims to add 3 more of the same class by 2020 in efforts to expand their role at the center of the nation's maritime power. It's been 10 years since Sejong the Great took on its first mission, but the South Korean Navy says its first Aegis-class destroyer will continue to protect the nation's water. Kan Hyung-woo, Arirang News, Jeju.
Now, US President Donald Trump has revealed he will be removing James Mattis 2 months before his planned departure and has named Patrick Shanahan as the acting Secretary of Defense, a role he will assume on January 1st, New Year's Day. Taking to Twitter on Sunday, Trump said the former Boeing executive, who has been Mattis's deputy at the Pentagon, will be handed the top job. Unlike Mattis, Shanahan has not served in the military and has little foreign policy or even government experience. This comes as Mattis resigned last week, largely over President Trump's sudden withdrawal of US troops from Syria. More than 200 people have now been confirmed dead after a tsunami struck Indonesian coastlines over the weekend. It happened in the dead of night as well. For more on this tragic story and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Adam. So Adam, just walk us through the latest.
Well, Mark, the tsunami struck coastal towns on the islands of Sumatra and Java on Saturday almost without warning. It is believed to have been triggered by the infamous Anak Krakatau volcano. Its volcanic activity is thought to have set off undersea landslides, which in turn generated the deadly waves. At least 220 people have been killed, hundreds are injured, and a couple dozen people are still missing. Officials fear the death toll could also rise. Hundreds of homes and other buildings have been heavily damaged, and thousands of residents have been forced to evacuate to higher ground. They have also been warned to stay away from coastal areas such as beaches amid fears the volcano could trigger new tsunamis. It was the second deadly tsunami to hit Indonesia this year, but the one in September was accompanied by a powerful earthquake that gave residents a brief warning before the waves struck. There was no seismic activity before Saturday's tsunami, catching many people off guard. Rescue workers, meanwhile, are desperately looking for any possible survivors, but their access to affected areas is being blocked by fallen debris. President Trump's incoming acting chief of staff says the partial U.S. government shutdown could extend into the new year when the new Congress is seated. Speaking on Fox News on Fox News Sunday, Mick Mulvaney expressed doubts that any progress would be made on the budget for border security, which was the actual cause of the shutdown. He said the White House gave an offer to the Democrats over the weekend and they are waiting for a reply. Meanwhile, President Trump stood firm on his push for a wall along America's southern border. In a tweet, he wrote the wall was needed to stop what he called criminal elements. The Democrats have no incentive to meet Trump's demand of $5 billion before they take control of the House on January 3rd. French President Emmanuel Macron has said he deeply regrets President Trump's decision to withdraw US troops from Syria. He made the remarks at a press conference in Chad on Sunday, where he also paid tribute to the outgoing US Defense Secretary James Mattis, who stepped down over differences with Trump's policies.
About our American allies, I deeply regret the decision taken in Syria, and I would like to pay tribute here to General Mattis and the words that accompanied his decision. An ally should be reliable, coordinate with other allies. Mattis understood this. That's what I'm committed to.
Trump's decision has faced strong backlash from US lawmakers and allies who disputed the president's claim that the Islamic State group had been defeated. China's Commerce Ministry says it has made what it called new progress with the United States to resolve their trade dispute. In a statement, the ministry said both sides held a vice-ministerial level phone call last Friday, during which they exchanged views on the trade balance, the strengthening of intellectual property, protection and other issues of common interest. It marks the second such phone call in a week.
Thank you as always to our Noah Adam for the world news there. Now, In football news, Tottenham Hotspur striker Son Heung-min continues to light up the English Premier League with his silky skills. He bagged 2 more goals and an assist on Sunday, helping his team Spurs to a 6-2 win over Everton. It has been an incredible season for the South Korean international, but with around half a season to go, he's got his eye on the big prize, namely the EPL title. Lee Seung-jae with this report.
It's no wonder they call him sensational. Tottenham Hotspur's South Korean striker Son Heung-min scored his 7th and 8th goals of the EPL season on Sunday in Tottenham's crushing 6-2 win over Everton. The win also gives Spurs their 4th straight victory. Son's goals in the 27th and 61st minute, along with his assist in the 74th, prompted WhoScored.com to give Son a 9.9 match rating, the highest he's received this season. Son has been enjoying a remarkable year, ranking 78th in the Guardian's list of best male footballers in the world in 2018, and scooping his first EPL Goal of the Month award in November. The 26-year-old has also enjoyed an incredible year with the national team, scoring twice during the 2018 World Cup in Russia and leading South Korea to gold at the Asian Games, earning him an exemption from mandatory military service. But Sonny is still eyeing one more accomplishment this season, an EPL title. With 3 points against Everton, Tottenham is just 2 points behind Manchester City in second and 6 points behind Liverpool at the top of the standings. With Tottenham Hotspur winning just 2 league titles in their history, the last coming in the 1960-1961 season, Son is desperate to keep his hot streak going and lead his team to EPL glory. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, in around 15 minutes from now, officials will reveal what they believe is the cause of a spate of car fires in South Korea that affected dozens of BMW vehicles. The nation's transport ministry, together with a private/government joint investigation team, has been probing the case for several weeks now. The ministry is also expected to reveal whether the German automaker deliberately concealed the defects that caused the fires, while BMW launched a mass recall in South Korea citing defects in the exhaust gas recirculation module. Experts have raised the possibility of engine software manipulation causing the blazes. As part of the South Korean government's latest move to curb smoking in the country, a new set of warnings have been introduced on cigarette packs. The new packs will hit the shelves in January. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
South Korea is introducing new, tougher graphic warning images on cigarette packs to send an even stronger message to smokers. The new images include people suffering from lung and oral cancer as well as tooth discoloration. The move is in line with the government's plan to introduce new graphic warnings every 2 years in order to raise public awareness of the side effects of smoking. The Health Ministry says 11 new graphic images were introduced this time, including the one for electronic cigarettes, which will carry an image warning against the risk of cancer. The ministry is also considering enlarging the graphic warnings from the current size to cover more than 30% of the front of cigarette packs. Starting in 2016, tobacco companies were required to put pictorial warnings on cigarette packs sold in South Korea as part of the government's anti-smoking campaign. According to government data, the smoking rate for South Koreans over the age of 19 dropped by 1.6 percentage points to stand at 22.3% last year, the lowest since related records began in 1998. The number of cigarette packs sold also dropped to 3.52 billion last year from 3.66 billion in 2016. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Christmas is the day to celebrate the birth of Jesus, of course, and his spirit of love for his neighbours, and we're less than 24 hours away from Christmas Day here in Korea. On the streets all across the country, the Salvation Army shows the same spirit by raising funds for neighbours in need here in South Korea. HeungMin with this report.
우리의 작은 사랑이 어려운 이웃들에겐 큰 힘이 됩니다.
At Christmas, millions of people around the world celebrate the spirit of Jesus who helped those in need. Every winter on the streets of cities around the world, the Salvation Army ring bells to raise money to help our neighbors in need. In Seoul, the shopping district of Myeongdong is always bustling with people, and even more so during Christmas. Despite the cold, the Salvation Army and their red kettles come out every year and have almost become a symbol for this area. The Salvation Army Korea Territory is celebrating its 90th anniversary since it began raising funds in 1928 to provide humanitarian aid to those in need. The charity plans to collect some $5.8 million by the end of this year, with over 400 Salvation Army groups across the nation.
The Salvation Army provides humanitarian aid to deliver the love of Jesus. We're proud to volunteer for this job. Even though the weather is cold, we will be pleased if a lot of people participate in the fundraising.
The donations will be used to serve those in need, including children, the elderly, single moms, and others who need help.
The elderly who are in need suffer from the cold during winter. I hope my donation is used to help those people stay warm.
I just wanted to help people who just need things more than we do.
I donated money for the poor children so that they can live a better, happier life.
The warm hearts of those who sacrifice their time or donate to those in need remind us of the love of Jesus and the true meaning of Christmas. HeungMin, Arirang News.
Now, there's only around a week left of 2018, so we're going to continue our look back at the biggest domestic and international news stories of the year. 2018 was the year that the Me Too movement exploded into the public consciousness here in South Korea. So, our Oh So-young has more on how young women in Korea have been fighting for a future that's hopefully free of sexual harassment and abuse.
It started with a confession from female prosecutor Seo, who revealed the sexual harassment she'd suffered under a then-incumbent senior official of the Justice Ministry. The Me Too movement broke out with full force in South Korea in January, as Seo's televised interview led to public fury over the mistreatment and the career setback she had faced after she initially reported the incident. Seo-jeon's case was followed by more revelations by women who came forward to accuse influential men in South Korean society, mostly in political and cultural circles. These include a provincial governor and former Liberal presidential contender who stepped down after his former secretary accused him of rape on multiple occasions. A renowned filmmaker and an artistic director were charged with rape, and a potential Nobel Prize-winning poet was also disgraced after accusations of sexual harassment, with his poems removed from school textbooks. The movement soon spread across universities, schools and workplaces as girls and women began speaking out. This soon gave rise to Korea's own With You movement, where women rallied to show support for the female victims. The movement also represents the stand against Korea's traditionally patriarchal society and work culture, which has made women all the more vulnerable to abuse and discrimination, while the country's conservative culture is deemed to have stifled them from speaking out. The World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Survey shows South Korea ranks 115th out of 149 countries in terms of gender equality when it comes to economic participation and opportunities, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. Since the start of the Me Too movement, there have been growing calls for stronger laws to prevent and punish sexual violence and harassment, especially in the workplace. And fundamentally, many have raised the need to root out the long-standing culture of discrimination against women, and to listen to those who raise gender issues rather than dismissing them as overzealous feminists. Experts say perceptions of gender issues have been changing for the better in the light of the Me Too and With You movements this year. But in order to go forward, more support for women and gender education is needed across all aspects of society. Oh So-young, Arirang News.
Now, 2018 was also a historic year in terms of North Korea-U.S. relations. After 70 years of hostility, the two sides held a summit of their leaders for the first time in the middle of the year in Singapore. Things might be quiet at the moment when it comes to their nuclear negotiations, but there were other major developments as well. Lee Ji-won has a wrap-up of the events and where the two sides stand now.
On June 12th, North Korea and the U.S. held the first ever historic summit of their leaders when Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump met in Singapore. The leaders agreed on 4 points to establish diplomatic relations for North Korea's security guarantee and to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. Some said their joint declaration was vague, but many, like Shin Bum-chul, senior fellow at the Asan Institute, saw great meaning in the summit itself.
The fact that North Korea and the U.S. moved away from their war of words in 2017 and started to talk is a positive development.
Before and after that summit, there were many other signs of progress. The North Korean leader announced in April that his regime will not conduct nuclear and missile tests. South Korea and the U.S. suspended a number of joint military exercises. North Korea blew up its nuclear test site at Punggye-ri, returned the remains of some 50 American soldiers killed during the Korean War, and released 3 Korean Americans it had detained. But there were some rough patches too. North Korea criticized some in the Trump administration who continued to push a hardline stance. At one point, strong rhetoric from the North led President Trump to cancel the summit. And even though the summit did happen as planned, North Korea and the U.S. have different ideas about how denuclearization should proceed and what the rewards should be for each step along the way. Right now, talks seem to be at a standstill. A high-level meeting that was supposed to happen in November was postponed at North Korea's request, supposedly for scheduling reasons. But officials reportedly said that Pyongyang actually wasn't ready. And despite the U.S. reaching out, reports say the North has given no indication about when those talks should be rescheduled.
I think the current stalemate is related to the verification of the North denuclearization. The U.S. wants to talk with the North at a high-level meeting about a thorough declaration and verification process to make sure that there are concrete agreements reached at next year's summit. But it seems Pyongyang prefers top-down decision-making and wants to first hold the summit early next year.
President Trump and Secretary Pompeo have both expressed hopes of holding the second North Korea-U.S. summit in January or February. But in order for that to happen, Shin says the two sides must build firm trust in each other and come up with an overall roadmap to move forward with a shared understanding. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Good morning. An icicle snap has returned to most of Korea. We could feel the freezing air along with much colder temperatures. Morning lows have plunged to below -10 degrees Celsius in many upper regions. And here in the capital, it felt like -11 degrees this morning. So this Christmas Eve will be cold with clear skies, but good air quality. A cold wave advisory is in place for many upper regions, while dry weather alerts are in place for parts of Gangwon-do province. So it's extremely cold and dry in Gangwon-do province. So if you plan to head out to any ski resort in that region, be sure to take the weather into account. Daily highs will be 5 to 7 degrees lower than yesterday, getting up to single digits here in the capital, getting up to 2 degrees this afternoon. Daegu will get up to 5 degrees this afternoon. Now temperatures will rise a bit on Christmas Day with a slight chance of snow in the central regions. That starting Thursday, bone-chilling temperatures will sweep the country. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Christmas Eve morning here in Seoul. Merry Christmas to all our viewers out there. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV. We'll have our next newscast coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon, but we won't be having a news broadcast this time tomorrow because it is Christmas Day, but we will have news at noon and 6 p.m. then. Until next time, goodbye.